Hi, guys. Welcome back here to First Pitch on WagerTalk TV. My name is Andrew McGinnis. Joining me, Dave Koken, Brian Leonard, Steve Merrill. Same matchups as yesterday, guys, obviously. But obviously, one thing to talk about here, Dave, you mentioned it. I was on the wrong side of the Astros. I had the Astros 1-1 split for me. I had the over yesterday, though, in Dodgers Braves. But hey, it was kind of like a storyline that it was talked of on this show. It just seemed like when the runners were in scoring position, the Astros couldn't do it. And when the Rays needed to do it, they did it, and they got it done. Your thoughts on yesterday, Dave, and how your night went?
Well, the Astros are 4 for 24 with runners in scoring position, and none of those 4 hits drove in a run. They have yet to drive in a single run with runners in scoring position. Tampa Bay relievers have inherited 20 base runners, and none of them have scored. It's just weird. I mean, Hunter Renfroe is never going to be in the conversation for a Gold Glove, and he makes 2 great catches in right field. Everything's going right for them, and I'm glad I was on Tampa. Got a 4% play. That was my only selection yesterday, and it won. But if you think that's good, the guy below me on my screen, Brian Leonard, did me one better because Brian had a 5% play in the game, and he won as well.
Good stuff, Brian. So I could ask you how you're doing, but I hope after a night like that you're doing good.
Yeah, I've had a lot of success on these 5% plays, but I lost 3 in a row, so I was a little bit gun shy. But I couldn't believe that line yesterday. I got it, I think, minus 106, but it 111, whatever. Yeah, that was a game that even when I was losing 1-0, I still thought I was going to win. And I talked about that last time I was on about the advantage when you get to the bullpens that Tampa has in this series. So I felt really good about that. I saw somebody said when they were down 1-0, they could get Tampa at plus 205, I think they said. So I was pretty happy, even when I was losing, which tells me that I think I had the right side in that game.
Steve, first and foremost, I believe you do have a 5% play coming up here in college football. So everybody out there, go ahead and grab that over at WagerTalk.com. I know, Steve, you're doing a great job this season with college football. Something I stay away from, but this panel right here, these are some great college football guys, to say the least. So, Steve, how you doing? And how was your night?
Yeah, doing well. 8-1 in college football the last few weeks, 10-4 on the season. I think it's like 24% return on investment, which is number 1 right now at WagerTalk. So college football has been fantastic, but baseball's been good as well. 60% for the season, and I'm still 60% because I had Kershaw on the run line yesterday, and about an hour after I released it, he got scratched. I did not want anything to do with the rookie making his first postseason start. And guys, in hindsight, that probably saved me because when it was 7-0, I was like, well, wouldn't have mattered who was pitching because the Dodgers aren't hitting the ball. And then, of course, they came to life late in the game. So who knows if it would have been a different story with Kershaw on the mound, but probably not. So it probably kept me off a miss yesterday. I had the over in the NFL game instead, which did win. So it's been a nice run. 11-4 now, all sports the last 5 days at WagerTalk.com. And I do have a baseball best bet up there for Wednesday night.
I just want to mention, by the way, I have no plays today, but I do have opinions, which we'll talk about as far as the 2 baseball games are concerned. What I do have up is a 5% college football play, and as usual with my 5% college plays, that line is on the move. So you need to get that quickly. And I do have 2 golf matchups this week, 16-4-1, since I went exclusively to matchups the last several weeks. Those are not available for individual sale. They are for anybody who's on with a package for all my plays. You get them, but that's it. I don't sell them individually. And that's all I have to promote. Back to you, Andrew. What do you have?
Like I mentioned, it was a split for me yesterday. So, Steve, obviously, some people were disappointed with the scratch for Kershaw. I was almost happy because I had the over anyway, with Kershaw already expected to start, and then it made that over a little more exciting for me with him not on the mound, I guess. And then I didn't really need him too much or anybody else because it seemed that one team kind of got the job for me for the most part on their own. For myself, I just have 1 NFL play up and 1 MLB. Yesterday, like I said, frustrating 1-on-1 day. The entire panel tells me Rays. I'm on the Astros. Good to have your own opinion, though. And coming off a 2-0 morning in the Korean baseball. Continuing to do that. You can grab packages from me in the KBO, posted around 7 p.m. Eastern time, later in the evening. Do my work kind of after I'm done doing baseball and all that kind of stuff. So it's posted later in the evening. And Dave and I will potentially be doing a playoff show for the KBO. baseball winding down, but with the big season that the KBO had, Dave, I think every team played each other 16 times. So
Yes,
10 teams. They have a long season.
Yeah, 144 games and only 10 teams. They are familiar with one another. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to mention real quick, yesterday is a big day at WagerTalk TV. Lots of videos filmed, lots of stuff posted for free content on the channel. I believe all three of you guys were involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it's college or NFL. Those are posted either yesterday or today. You can find those. So check those out over at the YouTube channel, guys. But without further ado, let's get right into it here. And we're going to start with the Dodgers and the Braves. And Steve, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, first thing, of course, we mentioned this when Brian, Dave, and I did the show on Monday. Andrew, Matt was filling in for you, but I told the panel that the Braves had a chance in this series because Fried was going 3 of the 7 games as the number 1 starter there in Game 1, and we talked about how if you like the Braves, excuse me, you're much better off getting them on the series price at almost 3-1. They were plus 270, I believe, instead of playing them as a small dog in Game 1 because they pretty much had to win with Fried on the mound. That's what they did. Didn't look like that was necessarily going to be the case yesterday. As I mentioned, the Dodgers are a good-sized $2 favor with Kershaw until he got scratched. And then all of a sudden it became a very winnable game again for the Braves. They went out there and got it done. I don't know if the Dodgers were flat because they had to put a rookie out there, but obviously down 7-0. I mean, their offense was not alive, as we mentioned, until late in the game. They came really close to pulling that off, though. Bellinger gets all the way to third, which, no one's talking about because it ended up not mattering. But he got that extra base. And he was 1 base away from tying that game, and the ball was hit hard right after that, almost got through the infield. So could have been a different story. We could be talking about how the Braves blew a 7-0 lead and how they really were in the back seat now, but that's not the case. They're up 2-0. I really like the Dodgers here. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy guy. We joke about it with the NBA a lot with the officials, and they do somewhat make a difference in the NBA. I don't think that's the case with baseball, but you got to imagine MLB needs the Dodgers in the World Series, and I'm not sure they're going to get them there now, down 0-2, but they sure want this series to go as long as possible. So if you are a conspiracy guy, if you have your tinfoil hat on tonight, you got to figure everything's going to go right for the Dodgers. But I think a bigger question is how does that late momentum carry over for LA, and does it? I think it's a positive. I think they probably build off of that, and I like them here in Game 3 tonight. But you're laying a price. I mean, it's priced in accordingly. Bigger picture, though, let's look at the series. Braves are over a 2-1 favorite now. I looked late last night. I was doing a late radio spot right after it came out, and the line's pretty much the same. Dodgers plus 200. Braves were minus 260 at FanDuel. Offshore, I'm seeing it a little tighter at minus 210, plus 180. But it's an uphill battle here for the Dodgers now. And keep in mind, that's because, Brian, as we talked about, they've got Fried for 2 more starts here. So, the Dodgers can win tonight, and I think they will win tonight, but they're going to still have to face that Atlanta ace in 2 of these other games at some point and have to win at least one of those to have any chance to win the series.
Dave, a comment here from the director. And first of all, thank you guys all for tuning in and leaving your comments. I'll make sure to post some of these on the screen. But he says, can't wait to hear the comments on Dave Roberts. Anything from you there on that, Dave?
I mean, I can't blame it on Roberts. Because I don't disagree with any of the moves he's made. They just don't work sometimes. He's been snake bit in postseason. What's interesting in this game, we're seeing, to me, 2 different mindsets, potentially, in terms of the Dodgers down 2-0 and the Astros when they were down 2-0 going into last night. The Dodgers were looking like the Astros early in the game. They're getting all these free passes from Anderson, and they can't do anything with them. You're supposed to score runs when you get walks, and they weren't doing it. But they did cut loose late in the game. So I think the Dodgers at least exit last night's game feeling pretty good about themselves. I'm sure they're not happy about being down 2-0. But as Steve mentioned, they get some momentum out of that late rally, and I think they'll have a positive frame of mind going into today's game. Nevertheless, the price of the game is way too high for me to consider playing. I do think the Dodgers win today. The value, based on where I make the line and where the line is, would be Atlanta. But I don't play big dog value unless I think there's a realistic chance that the team is going to actually win the game. It's kind of like in football. I might see a game where the line is 21. And I make the line 17. So the value would be to take the 21, but I generally won't do that because the team's going to they're going to lose anyway. And now I'm just counting on them losing by enough so that they don't get blown out against the spread. It's the same mental process for me in baseball. I make this price about 20 cents less than it is, but that's just not enough for me to actually bet Atlanta because I don't think they're going to win this baseball game. I think the Dodgers do have momentum coming out of last night. I like Urias here better than Wright. And the fact that the Braves did have to suddenly go to the bullpen last night in a big way in the last 2 innings actually sets up the Dodgers a little better in the bullpen today.
Makes a difference
in the later innings. Yeah, so I think the way that game played out last night will favor the Dodgers here. I think they'll win, but again, at the price that's being posted, I just can't play it.
Yeah, Brian, I think, momentum is talked about in so many different ways in so many different sports, but I believe that the word momentum can be used actually more so in a playoff scenario and how a team rallied in the end, maybe not so as much in a regular season game to handicap that towards their next game. But in this scenario here, with a team that scored just 1 run in game 1 now with 7 here in this previous team total, 5.5 with this one. We're seeing, I believe, 3.5 is the team total for the Braves. So those are the two things. And so it's minus 110 for that team total. We're talking about the price here. We've got Johnny Outlaw, loyal viewer here to WagerTalk TV, always mentioning his team totals. Obviously, you go from a minus 180 to a minus 110 at this team total. And I believe Steve and I, we've talked about, first of all, not just that margin, how that when the Dodgers win, they win by margin, but usually when this team wins, they're putting up 4 or 5. Is that a strong bet in your eyes, Brian, to go ahead here with this team total?
It could be. I took Atlanta plus 200 to win the series. Steve talked me into that when we did a show just a few days ago, and it's so far I've put myself in a good position because I can always hedge back on the Dodgers at a really good number now. But I said coming into the series, based on how well these two teams hit righties, number 1 and 2 in Major League Baseball, that I was looking to fade the teams going against lefties. And Urias is a lefty. Last 5 times he's gone at least 70, 75 pitches. So I expect him to be out there for a while. Kyle Wright's a guy that I've been looking to fade, although the last 3 starts, 71, 63, and 76 game scores. So if I'd faded him then, I'd be hurting myself. But I think I agree with Dave. I think Urias is the better pitcher here. The Dodgers, when you take a look at away games this year, they were 23-8, where Atlanta was 19-14. 1-run games, both these teams have done very well. My concern with the Dodgers is they got off to such a great start the season, had that division locked up. So they really, other than when they played the Padres in the playoffs earlier, when they had something to prove, they really haven't had any – they haven't been behind in these games. So now they're 0-2. Based on what the Dodgers have done in the past, they've come into the playoffs like with the most talent the last 3 or 4 years. That's got to be in their heads a little bit. Now, the comeback last night was a major differential. If they lose that game by a big number, I don't want any part of the Dodgers today. But since they did have that comeback, I somewhat am intrigued by the Dodgers. But like what Dave said, just because you have a little value on a game does not mean you should play it. It just means that maybe you should take another look at it. And I'd love to play the Dodgers here, but the line is too high for me. I'd like to be able to get into it and play it. Maybe I'll do it some live betting in that regard. But if you're looking for value, I think the value side is probably Atlanta. But I just can't put the money on them right now. I would prefer to play the Dodgers, but I've been priced out. So, there's plenty of other games this weekend where I'll be glad to put my money out there. I just can't do it on this game.
A prop wager I was looking at, although a little bit of contradictive because I was speaking about that team total for the Dodgers just to get a better price versus that money line. Kyle Wright, his K prop is only 3.5 guys on this game here. And I understand that it seemed like it was pretty much a consensus that which where the pitching matchup favors. However, although he hasn't faced great teams, talking about guys like the Mets and even the Marlins and Nationals, but 7 Ks, 4 Ks, 6 Ks, 4 Ks, 4 Ks, last 5 starts for him. You go back 3 more after that, it's at minimum 4 Ks. So although it's the Dodgers, although it's this team that had the great momentum and the great rally late, we're asking this guy to get 4 Ks here, and it's been something he's done on average at minimum throughout his career, throughout these outings, and probably last 6 or 7 outings in his career. To me, at a minus 120 mark, that's actually a good bet. It's something I'll strongly be considering. And as far as the Urias, he's at 4.5, and it's not really one that I'd be interested in touching for right now. But Kyle Wright, over 3.5 strikeouts. The good news about that one is a lot of times, guys, these strikeout props, the odds aren't good. We saw it with Glass now. We talked about it last Friday, how it was minus 160. And then even when it dropped to 5.5, it was still like minus 140. This is minus 120 for him to pretty much reach the number of strikeouts that he usually gets anyway. We're not asking him to do anything different than what he usually does. Steve, I know sometimes you have some comments on this. Any thought on that?
Yeah, a few things. First of all, Dave brought up the point that the Braves bullpen not in great shape after having to offset that huge comeback last night, so that could give you an extra inning or so out of your starter.
Right.
If I'm the manager, I'm a little less hesitant, more hesitant to get him out of there quick. So that helps the over props there. And you said 2 magic words that I want to touch on again. I mentioned this to Matt Josephs on Monday. I was talking about it again last night on the show I did. If you pull up road games only through the 60 National League games, National League road game only rankings, first and second in every power category offensively was Nationals and Mets. So it just shows how tougher that Braves schedule was. And I bring it up for a couple reasons.
Yeah.
It's interesting because neither one made the playoffs, but bigger picture, the Braves then were third in a lot of those. So the Braves, National, and Mets were ahead of the Dodgers in batting average, slugging, on base, all of that on road games only, which I think is the most neutral way to look at it. And the Dodgers didn't play any of those teams. And Dave, as you know, the A's and Athletics, and the Astros had that same thing, whereas the Rays played each other in the East. So not only did the Braves play the Mets and those powerhouses, but they played the Yankees and Rays as well, and the Dodgers didn't. So Dave, I think that's something. Maybe the Braves are a lot better than we realize.
Yeah, and look, as the Red Sox were awful, but that was because of their pitching. They still hit the baseball.
Good point.
The Orioles had a halfway decent offense, and the Blue Jays weren't the worst offense in the world. So
Nope.
The Braves faced a lot tougher schedule. There's no question about that. And I'm kind of kicking myself, and I'm not a series bettor, as I pointed out, but I am kind of kicking myself for not heeding your advice on Monday. Brian did, which makes him smarter than I am, and taking the Braves in this series. That was the value in this. That was the value play, was the Braves plus almost 2-1 in the series, and I didn't take advantage of it. So I'm stupid, but everybody knows that anyway.
I don't think so, Dave. But and like you said, Steve, about how long he's going to go in because of the bullpen. Looking at it right now, average was five innings pitched, and 6 is what it seemed to be during the latter half of his season. So, like you said, hopefully get that 1 extra inning more than we would have, and 6 innings is pretty promising for me to get over that 3.5 mark here. Also, wanted to ask you just real quick before we move on, Steve, any interest in getting on the Dodgers here on the series price? I know that you mentioned that you obviously had that ticket, but as far as a middle or just for our viewers, if they're interested in doing that, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually going to throw that to Brian and say, you've got a piece of that. I'm glad you were able to get on that, Brian. And he said he could hedge it, which makes me think he hasn't done it yet. And I don't blame him because part of the handicap and what Dave was getting at, where Dave and I kind of should have been on the bandwagon as well, is that we forgot how good of a schedule they played. Brian was looking at it more because Fried was going to get 4 starts, and he still has 2 starts coming up. So as of now, I think he still has the edge there. That $2 on the Dodgers take back best team in baseball is tempting until I started really thinking about the schedule difference last night, and I'm starting to think this Atlanta team, what they've done offensively, has been on par, if not better than what the Dodgers have done against a tougher schedule. Something to real quick, too, guys. The roof's been open a lot. The reason they keep it open, apparently, is because they want the airflow with the COVID and with fans there.
Yep.
I saw Todd Frazier talk about some stuff the Rangers did this year messing around. They say the ball goes 10 to 15 feet further with the roof open, and dead center that goes out. Otherwise, you almost have to hit it to right field to get it out. So there's a lot of hits the Dodgers are having that would have been home runs in other parks this season that are not going out. So once again, Atlanta's a power team too, so it goes both ways. On that strikeout prop too, Andrew, another thing, if I'm the manager and I'm up 2-0, I'm more likely to let my guy go a little deeper to keep my
Yes.
bullpen fresh for other games because it's not a must-win tonight. So there's a lot of
That's
things
right.
helping you with that overprop in general with the Braves tonight. And another reason I like the Dodgers in this game, but exactly like Brian and Dave said, the price is too high. And I love Dave's analogy. I do it in college football too. I've gotten away from just hoping bad teams cover. And that's one of the reasons I'm 8-1 the last few weeks in college football. And I think that's great advice nowadays, especially in college football.
Great stuff, guys. We'll move on here just quickly. Want to say a quick hello here to Nathan and Kyle and Johnny and all these guys here. James, tuning in and watching us. You guys have watched us all season long here on First Pitch. We appreciate you guys. I'm sure the panel does as well. And we'll hopefully find some winners for you continuously here on this show. And don't forget to check out our best bets at WagerTalk.com and college football, NFL action, and hopefully a successful college basketball season coming around the corner as well. Guys, Tampa Bay and Houston, Glasnow and Greinke. I want to ask you, Dave, I'll start with you. First of all, this pitching matchup, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. But many people, and I'm not talking about just one or two guys on the radio or analysts, have talked about Greinke being a bit checked out. We saw him literally give a signal to the batter/catcher, and
He does that all the time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And a bomb, it's just like an absolute moonshot against him. And I look at Glasnow right now, and you got to wonder, first of all, how long does he stay in the game? But who has the pitching favorite matchup here? Because I look at it, and I think either of these guys, if they play their best, they could have the better game. It's just a matter of who's in the better headspace and who lasts longer.
Okay, so Glasnow has the edge. I don't think there's any question about that. And Tampa has every edge as far as the team stuff is concerned. For obvious reasons, they're up 3-0, and they can't do anything wrong. And Houston can't do anything right. Now, this is one of those games where it's like, wow, this is an easy bet on Tampa, and it's not for one reason. Well, two reasons. One, the odds makers put it in the price. I still make a pretty good number in baseball, and I made this number 128. So it's high. You're paying a premium to bet the Rays. I can still go along with that because they've got just an extraordinary momentum edge here. I mean, the Astros at this point have to be. You saw it on some at bats last night where the Astros hit the ball hard again, and somebody made a really good defensive play, and it was like the look on the Astros' faces. What else can go wrong?
It was numerous times, Dave. It was sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what happens when you have 3 straight games that go the same way. I mean, the Astros players have to be sitting there legitimately thinking they could be up 3-0. And instead they're down 3-0. Here's the weird part of it. They might actually be looser today than they've been in the prior couple of games because the series is pretty much over at this point. And sometimes when you get in that situation, you just go out and play the game and have some fun and see what happens. But I'm not going to bet on that happening. So even though there's slight value according to my number on Houston, there's not a chance that I can play them here. And by the way, if you follow Ralph Michaels on Twitter, I don't know if he put this up. Let me find it. I'm going to steal it out of our Slack conversation. Bear with me for 1 second while I get to this. Where's my WagerTalk today? Okay, listen to this. It's not there. I got to find the damn thing. He must have posted it on Twitter, and I will punch that up while I bullshit my way through this thing.
Dave, are you looking for the Game 4 angle?
Yeah. Do you have it?
Yeah, he did put it at the top there. Game 4 teams 3-0 lead or 11-3 average line to -120. 7-0 is a road favorite of -120 or more. So what he's saying is that they normally sweep is what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So that.
What about
I'm probably being.
Was there anything as far as totals with that trend?
I'm seeing 7-12 and 2 to the under.
Okay.
Since 2004, Game 3 teams. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the Dodger game. My bad. Game 3 teams that are 2-0, winning both as a dog, 7-12 to the under, Andrew. So that would favor the under the Dodger game from Ralph Michaels.
I'll disagree with something Johnny Outlaw says. Kiermaier loss is huge for the Rays. Certainly, it hurts them defensively, but Margot can slide over to center field, and he's a very good center fielder. And Kiermaier never cost them that much offensively. Okay, I mean, you saw it last night. He might be the worst changeup hitter I've ever seen. I don't know why anybody ever throws him a fastball, because he just cannot hit a changeup at all. Good ball player, to be sure, because of his defense and his speed. He's the best center fielder in the game defensively. But I don't know that it's a huge loss for them unless he's out for a significant amount of time. Anyway, my take on this, my final word on this game is I think the Rays will wrap it up, but I'm not laying 140 to find out. And I'll get set to play Tampa in the next series because I do think they're the team to beat right now.
Yeah, Dave, you talk about how you're not going to put your money towards, banking a team to come in a little bit looser and, not gripping the bat as tight. But, I think that you look at it and the consistency has been there. The score has been almost similar every single game so far. Look at the stat sheets, though. The hits have continuously come from this Houston Astros team, like you talked about, the stranded stats. And I think to myself, something wouldn't surprise me if I saw an over finally hit, but yet the Astros still lose.
Well, by the way, great comment from R. Dow, because I absolutely 100% agree with this. The comment is Altuve should be DH instead of in the field today. The guy has the yips.
Yes,
absolutely. He looks like Chuck Knobloch and Steve Sachs reborn. Those are guys, if you go back a ways, who, for whatever reason, forgot how to throw the ball to a base. Absolutely would get Altuve off the field today and make him the DH. That's a great comment. And I would do the same thing.
I mentioned yesterday on the show, obviously this is never something I would give out to clients or really, a real strong wager on it. But I did go small on what I said on the show yesterday about a run in the first inning. That was minus 105. And we ended up getting that with the home run there. And I wouldn't be shocked to see that again today. Something about this game just tells me that we'll see something early on. Desperate times. And I think that, these teams will be swinging the bats pretty tough here. And let's not completely say that Tampa Bay is going to go out there and just be relaxed either. They're going to want to get this sweep. They're going to want to finish things out here. So I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, look, they're going to go out there relaxed either, because there's still one more game to be played, at least for them. And as far as they're concerned, Brian Leonard, your thoughts here in this game?
Got a lot of thoughts. First off, in regards to the comment about Greinke signaling the pitches, I believe he came out and said that he wasn't signaling pitches. There was a run around second base, so he gave the number 2 to the catcher, which meant they were switching over to the next call. Based on a run around second base, they always change it up. So he said that's what it was, although he has given out signals earlier. So I don't know. I don't know if that was an excuse for what it was, just because the one time somebody hit it. But that was what Greinke said about the game. As for the 4-0 sweeps, I think it's a little different. It's different in all sports this year because you don't have to travel back and forth. A lot of times in the NBA, I love playing the 4-game sweep because the team, even if they win, if you're down 3-0, you not only have to play that game, you have to travel again. And the travel part sucks when you're down 3-1 and you don't want to, you want the season to end, you want to be with your family. This is different. There is no travel here. So it's going to be different, and I think it's not going to have the same effect. It's not like the basketball or the hockey, for example, when you were in a bubble for months. These guys showed up just a few days ago. So I think you have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt when you take a look at the sweep numbers, because I'm one of those guys that I love playing for sweeps. But since you're not dealing with travel, I think that's a major differential here. I agree with Dave. Glasnow's the better starter here. He did pitch as basically just a starter on the 9th on the just the 2 or 3 days rest. They got him out of there after 37 pitches. I think he did a wonderful job at one time through the lineup. So he didn't extend a whole lot of energy there with only 37 pitches. Greinke is one of these guys that he's been around for a long time. He's a very smart guy, but he also has other problems. But he's one of those guys that he's going to come out there and give it your best shot. The problem has been on the year, he hasn't been at his best. This is a down year for Greinke. And it came in a bad situation with the other Astros starters being injured this year and having down years. So That's a concern here. But I like Tampa. I just don't like the number. Very similar to the other one here. So it may be something I take a look at in live betting. And I've been using this all through the series. I want the bullpens. I want Tampa's bullpen over Houston's bullpen. So that's what I'm going to take a look at. But I also agree that the Astros may come out here and say, hey, season's over. Let's go out and have fun, because they have not gotten any breaks whatsoever in this game. And I just love the way this Tampa Bay Rays team plays. They do the right thing, the smart thing every time. They play good defense. They use their entire lineup. All the guys on the bench have a job. I think Tampa's just been terrific this year, and I love the way they play. I'm going to treat this as to a live in-game situation. Hopefully Houston gets off to an early lead, and I can get decent payback on Tampa.
Well, if you have been doing that, you're doing all right for yourself. Steve, any thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, just a few things. On the series adjusted price, by the way, we're seeing Tampa around 15, 20 to 1. I'm sorry. Tampa 1 to 35. Yeah, 1 to 35, 1 to 40. Houston, I'm at 15 or 20 to 1 on the take back. True odds, now it varies because they're going to be a different size favorite, but just say they're a $1.25 dog in all 4 games, it'd be 4%, so that's 25 to 1. Today they're a slightly bigger dog at $1.30-ish, $1.35 is the true odds. However, they were about a $1.05 dog in a couple games, which give them about a 48% chance. So depending on what the size is, they have about a 3 to 6% chance of winning 4 straight games. So those odds are pretty accurate. There's not any value either way on the series price. Looking at the World Series, the Rays are now a favorite. You can get them at a little bit better than plus money, about plus 120 in some spots to win the whole thing. Braves are a little bit higher up there, of course. I'm seeing the Braves at about plus 160. So you can get them both at plus money if you definitely think they're going to be there and lock it in. Of course, the question mark is, can the Dodgers pull the comeback? Houston probably done. We talk about fumbles in the NFL. It's impossible to predict. Interceptions are a little easier, but how turnovers decide games. Sometimes it's random, though. Errors is something we don't talk a lot about in baseball. The Rays have yet to have an error in this series. In fact, their last 4 games, they've had no errors. Their opponents have committed 6. The Yankees had 2 in that final game. Houston's had 4 in this series. We talked about Altuve having some problems. So Tampa's been the better team in the field. They have the much better pitching, the bullpen overall. They have not been the better offensive team, though, as you keep saying, Andrew. And even last night, they finally get 5 runs for the first time in like 5 games, and they get them all in 1 inning. So even that is a little dicey. It's not like they were consistent all night. Brian talked about 3-0, sweeps when teams are up 3-0 in other sports. There's no question the odds makers over the years adjust the NBA lines a couple points based on that angle. We see it in the NHL prices. We see it in baseball prices. And Dave brought up that angle from Ralph Michaels, and I was looking at it a little deeper here, Dave. It's 11-3 since 2004. And the average price, this for teams up 3-0, the average price was just $1.20. So it's not like these are $2 favorites. What's really interesting, though, in Ralph Michaels' angle is that favorites of $1.20 or more, like today, are a perfect 7-0. The other teams are just 4-3, saying when it was a really competitive price, those dogs had a better chance. So this is just like the Dodger game. I think the price is a little high, but I think Tampa has the momentum angle and more to play for here with the 3-0 lead. It's just a question if that offense comes alive. And, Andrew, my final thought on these 3-0 series, and we see this in the NBA as well, teams often play more loose. And if that's the case, I do think we could see more offense.
Right.
And both teams have hit these starters well, actually. Both current lineups, hitters that have faced Glasgow and Greinke, have both hit above 300 career with like 50, 60 at-bats combined each. So these hitters have had some success against these 2 starters.
That's why part of me says, if you like the Astros, just go ahead and take that team total, because somehow they might just find a way to lose the game anyway. I would not be shocked if we actually finally saw a high-scoring game between these 2 clubs and somehow the Astros find a way to lose it. And hats off as well, just the style of baseball the Rays have been playing and the way that they've been managed as well, like Brian and Dave have been continuously speaking of. That does it for our show, guys. Grab some packages from all of us over at WagerTalk.com for Steve, for Brian, for Dave. Best of luck, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow right here